our Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Ready to learn some medieval combat, kiddo?
You bet, Dad. Let's do this.
You know, spending quality time with your kids is important, but finding a fun and safe way to do it can really be a challenge. That's where halberds come in. Halberds are the perfect way to bond with your kid while teaching them about history and physical fitness. Plus, they're a blast to play with. So next time you're looking for some family fun activity, grab a halberd and get ready to make some memories.
Come on, Dad. Round 2.
Halberds, bringing families together one medieval battle at a time. This commercial brought to you by the KLRNradio.com Ad Council.
Front Porch Forensics deals with the darkest corners of human nature. This show contains graphic discussions of murder, violence, and the brokenness of the human soul. Listener discretion is strongly advised. But if you choose to stay, well, family, pull up a chair on our front porch, but know it gets real dark here real fast. That's right, friends and family. It does get dark here, and tonight's episode will absolutely follow that same line of thought. It's going to be a rough one. It's going to spark a lot of debate, I hope. And I'd love to see you guys in the chat bringing it up, and we'll keep the talk going. Tonight's episode is the one about possession. The devil made me do it. And I think we've been pretty clear on here about how we feel about spiritual warfare, how angels and demons are real. And I fully believe that possession is a real thing. But I am curious to see a lot of what you guys think. But straight off the bat, KLRNradio.com, friends and family, I do want to thank you for coming in and joining me tonight. I am your host for this evening, Bumpstock Ken, or maybe Diesel Dan, depending on what show you're listening to. But anyways, in the chat right now is your favorite hostess, Bumpstock Barbie. She's saying hello, everybody in the chat. So if you're in the chat rooms, please jump in, join us. We'd love to have you because it'll be a great show to open for discussion. But let's get into it real quick. I guess we'll just start with the most popular one. I think everybody kind of knows where this is going, but I do want to say that my views and expressions are mine and mine alone. They don't necessarily represent KLRNradio.com or anybody else that's affiliated with us. So if I say something that you vehemently disagree with, I'm sorry that you're wrong, but
Let me just give you some cover real quick, brother. The views expressed on this program may reflect those of KLRN Radio Management because KLRN Radio Management is on the show. That's me, and they're my views. So now you're covered regardless. Go ahead.
Yep. Riding there is Rowdy Rick. He is the man in charge, and I'm glad to have him riding shotgun on this. And he may join in to bail me out when I get to stuttering or sounding like an idiot. He's here to save me. And again, Bumpstock Barbie is in the chat, so y'all join us and let's get this ball rolling. How about it? So, the infamous words, we've all heard them. Some of us have may even said it. Most of the times it's in jest where we're laughing about it, coming up with a BS reason on why we done something. But the devil made me do it. Those were Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's words on February 16th, 1981, in Brookfield, Connecticut. Alan Bono, his landlord, lies dead on the floor, 5 stab wounds to his chest and his stomach. Blood pools beneath him, still warm, and Arnie stands there, his eyes vacant, insisting that it wasn't him. It wasn't his hand that held the knife. It was something else. It was the devil. So what happens when evil takes a stand in the courtroom? We like to talk about forensics, and we also like to talk about the legalities in the cases that when they get to the courtroom part and what's fact versus what's opinion. But then when it gets into the realm of the supernatural, I guess, like we've been dealing with this past month for October, that's where it starts getting blurry. The blacks and whites, which I like to deal with, becomes the grays. And that's what makes October interesting, because we normally do the October spooky season here on KLRN Radio. I know Juxtaposition does Juxtober. They've been doing cryptids and whatnot all month. And yes, I know it's November, and technically, but last night was Halloween, so it's the perfect time to wrap up the month of October for spooky season. And so bear with me when I talk about October and Halloween and whatnot, because it still is.
We're doing the same thing. We have our final show for Cryptids tonight, so don't feel bad. You're in good company.
Well, what's Juxtaposition doing tonight?
The Cryptid Roundtable. It's our final one.
Oh, cool. I like cryptids.
So for those that are hanging out with us on the stream, you're looking at an actual picture of right around the trial when all this started. This case. So.
Yeah, I was going to mention that you got that pulled up there. So that's from, I guess it's like coming into the courtroom there. But this is that picture of Arnie right there?
Yeah, that's actually Arnie.
Okay, cool.
All decked out in his suit and stuff.
Yeah, looking dapper. Actually dapper. So what does happen when evil takes a stand in the courtroom? When a man claims a demon drove him to murder, is it possession, madness, or a calculated lie? So tonight, I'm not I'm trying not to get too far into the religious side of it because y'all think y'all know where I stand, but I'll eventually get there because I can't not if y'all know me at all. But what we're going to try to do is dissect the belief versus the actual crimes and the facts and kind of those shadows in between. So again, this is Front Porch Forensics, and I'm glad you're here with us. So we're going to try to unravel these dark corners of human nature and separate the murders from the monsters, or in some cases, maybe the monsters are human and they're still doing the murdering, obviously. But in this special case, we're looking at, is it a quick excuse, a ready-made excuse, or did the devil really make them do it? So let's get into this state. Let's hear, like I said, the question's not as simply but profound. Can a person truly be possessed, or is the devil a convenient excuse for humanity's darkest impulses? This isn't a new debate. In 1692, the Salem witch trials executed over 20 people locally, many accused of consorting with Satan. By the 19th centuries, early insanity defenses emerged, like an 1843 case where delusion was argued as a barrier to criminal responsibility. In the 20th century, exorcism related killings came around, cases that were tied to belief in demonic possessions. Those began appearing in courtrooms worldwide as a type of defense. It kind of morphs into just the insanity argument a lot, but again, who's to say insanity isn't caused by demonic possession? Now, these cases, like I said, are kind of fascinating to me because they blur the lines with provable facts versus what people would call faith, because they say faith can't be proven in a courtroom. So it's kind of like faith versus fact, if you will. But I think a lot of time fact is, faith is based in the fact in a lot of ways. Bumpstop Barbie here says, I lean towards it being a lie, especially against this case here. But then you get men like Richard Chase, where it really was severe mental illness, or it could also be possession in his case, and we just call it mental illness because to most people, that's more logical. And I agree with that too. The people who lack faith in Christianity or whatever it may be, therefore they don't believe in demons, right? They don't have, if they don't believe one way, they don't believe the other. So they got to look at their kind of logic that's based solely on what they can wrap their human minds around. And we all know the human mind is flawed. So to them, well, a demon can't be real, so therefore possession can't be real. Let's not look at the overwhelming evidence of what goes on with the human body when you're dealing with a possession, along with the human mind. They'll write that off some way. I think that takes more faith to believe in nothing than it takes faith to believe in something. And that's just kind of where I'm at on that. I think Barbie would agree with me. But go ahead, Rick.
Well, I was going to say, from my perspective, and this is in kind of the same vein you're in, I can respect an agnostic a heck of a lot more than I can respect an atheist, because the idea that all of this came from nothing is absolutely ludicrous to me. But the idea that it came from something and we're not quite sure what that is, so we're not necessarily going to buy into how religion decides to answer those questions, that I can at least understand, because that admits, we got here somehow. There was some sort of mechanism involved. You're just not ready to narrow it down.
Yeah.
Whichever one it is. But as far as the interesting thing about this case is, this was the first time that demonic possession was ever attempted to be used as a defense, and it catapulted the entire thing into pop culture craziness. So
I think this probably lays the groundwork for the satanic panic, that one of this case does. When was that satanic panic? In the 80s?
I think so.
I want to
Was
say
it the 70s? I thought, didn't you and Lauren do a show about that once before already? Or at least I think
we didn't do a whole standalone show about it, but we did when we was doing the Richard Chase show. Because I think demonically possessed, we brought up the demonic satanic panic.
Yeah, it's the modern phase of the satanic panic in the United States began in and around 1980 with the publication of the book Michelle Remembers. It peaked during the 1980s, mid to late, and continued into the early to mid 90s, but kind of phased out after that.
Right.
So yeah, this was all around that same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right in the heyday of it, because it started in 81 with the murder of Alan Bono. This case does. So, I mean, it's right there in the window of it starting. So, the satanic panic may have actually influenced this defense too, though. So they go hand in hand, I guess. But I'll get into the story here. I just got it marked, covered as the Demon murder case. That's what I got it wrote down here as. But the Demon murder case, also known as the Devil Made Me Do It trial, refers to the 1981 murder of Alan Bono by Arnie Cheyenne Johnson in Brookfield, Connecticut. This case stands as a singular footnote in American legal history, the first and so far only time a defendant attempted to use demonic possession as a formal defense in a U.S. murder trial. I said attempted, but I mean they literally brought it up, so they used it. But what this basically boils down to is a landlord-tenant dispute that escalates into a murder. And I mean, it's got, well, we'll get into it in a minute, but it's got all the right things to it. It's got child possession, it's got an exorcism, it's got paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren in it, and then of course the media frenzy that goes along with all of it. And it's a good story that kind of blurs the lines between faith and forensics, and maybe even a little bit of folklore, if you will. But what I've got figured out and wrote down here is it draws on court records, witness testimonies, family statements, reports from the news medias, and other investigations. I also got some information from a 2023 Netflix documentary, The Devil on Trial. I suggest you watch that. It's a good one. And I'm going to try to go through, I guess, chronologically the best way I can to lay it out. And we'll just start with the Glatzel family, because that kind of lays the framework and the basis for it, because that's really where it all starts. So the best way is to start at the beginning. So a little bit of background on the Glatzel family. The story's roots lie in the Glatzel family. Like I said, they are a working class Catholic household in Connecticut, Brookfield, Connecticut. Yeah, Brookfield, Connecticut. It's a quiet suburb of about 16,000, and it's known at the time for its kind of idealistic rolling hills, beautiful scenery, the white picket fence neighborhood, very, very low crime rate. So it's an ideal place to live. It's the background for a Hallmark movie, not a horror movie. Although some of those Hallmark movies, after a while, seems like horror movies. And especially on about the third one in a row. And they're coming, folks. Halloween's over, so the Hallmark movies are coming. Prepare yourself. They're inevitable. So the Glatzel family. Let's start with Judy, the mother. She's, at the time, this is 1980, 81. She's mid-30s. She's a homemaker, very strong Catholic faith. The friends and family described her as being a very devout Catholic and extremely protective of her family. Carl Glatzel Sr., of course, the father, he's a hardworking construction worker. He was gone a lot because of his work. He wasn't a bad father. He just busy. So he was always, he wasn't home very often. He was out working. Not a bad guy, just busy. Then you got Carl Glatzel Jr. He is the middle son, 17 years old at the time. He was very skeptical, one of those kids that ask questions. He wasn't sure about anything supernatural. He wanted to find the logic in what was going on. The eldest daughter, 19 years old, her name is Debbie Glatzel. She worked as a dog groomer, and she was engaged to Arnie Johnson since the age of 16. That's a whole different story. Alan Glatzel, the second youngest son, I guess, he's in the early to mid-teens. Now, unlike Carl Jr., he bought into the supernatural narrative completely. He sold into it. He believed every bit of it. And then David Glatzel, the youngest at 11, the alleged possessed child, he described as very imaginative, very playful, and always into something mischievous. Just a typical 80s kid or 70 kids at that part. Here we go. I'm already getting chewed out. I do want to do Hallmark Halloween Channel. Give me a main character whose mother dies and she has to move home to run the bakery, which is haunted by her mother, who has supernaturally given her the secret family recipes and trying to play matchmaker for her daughter. Yep. And it's got to be a small town. There's got to be a Christmas tree lighting at some point. Some sort of misunderstanding from the old high school sweetheart who never got over. And then there you go. You got every Hallmark Christmas movie of the years. But I would like to see a serial killer one. That'd be kind of cool. Same setup. Just make it twisted. That'd be right up our alley. So go ahead.
No, I was just I was thinking I can't think of the name of the show, but there already is kind of one of those that's kind of Hallmark-esque. It has the chick that played Mac in on Jag, and she's like an actual witch. I just can't think of the name of the show. I think it was actually on Hallmark Channel for a while. But yeah, it wasn't actually a movie, but it was a series. I think it ran for like 5-6 seasons. So I wound up watching it because she was a smoke show. That was the only reason.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say for her, I'm going to check it out. I mean, for the plot.
Hey, your wife's in the chat, sir. You better be careful. I don't have one of those answers.
I said the plot. For the plot, I'm going to check it out. I don't know what y'all heard, but that's what I said. So moving on, let's get to the murder. In June 1980, the family rented a modest house at 37 Burwell Street from landlord Alan Bono. Alan Bono was 40 at the time. He had a kennel, like an animal kennel. What other kind of kennel? An animal kennel manager at the Brooksfield Pet Motel. He was described as a very friendly guy, sometimes overly friendly, and a very, very heavy drinker. Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, 19 years old, tree surgeon apprentice, no prior criminal record, described as loyal but possessive of Debbie, who was 16, moved in with Debbie to save on rent. So there's kind of some of the main players that we're looking at right now. No, I'm sorry, Debbie's 19. It is Debbie is 19. She'd been engaged since they were 16. So at this point, they're both 19, and they're engaged to marry for the past 3 years, from 16 to 19. So Arnie Johnson, 19, moves in with Debbie to save on rent. So you've got Alan Bono, the kennel owner who's renting out to Arnie and Debbie. 40. Bono's 40, the others are 19. So June 18th to July 4th, 1980, David began exhibiting disturbing behavior shortly after moving in. And David, again, is 11. He's the one that we're going to focus on first. So 11-year-old David began exhibiting disturbing behavior shortly after moving in to the house that Bono was renting them. And on June 18th, he complained of nightmares featuring a beastly figure that he described as an old man with black eyes, jagged teeth, and cloven hooves, who threatened to steal his soul. And family members dismissed it as childish imagination or just stress tied to the move, being into a new house and uncomfortable surroundings. The way he describes it, I kind of picture the devil in the what's that video? Well, my wife's not in here with me. Tenacious D's tribute. You know, they had David Gold as the devil. They got the cloven hooves and the painted red and all that. So.
Oh yeah, I remember which one you're talking about. That
Grohl
was not
David
was
Grohl,
not.
isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, that's what popped into my head when he was. It's saying black eyes, jagged teeth, and the cloven hooves. That's what popped up. David, now 11 years old, he also started complaining of night terrors. And on July 3rd, around 8:30 p.m., David woke up screaming, convulsing, and clawing at his skin. He had unexplained bruises. They were linear, and they were about 5 to 6 inches long. And scratches appeared on his arms, his back, and on his torso, all around. And there was no medical explanation at all as to what was happening. The scratches and the bruises didn't match anything from like his hands and all that. So, just didn't have a good explanation to what was going on, other than what he was saying. Well, his behavior continues to escalate also because he started getting more withdrawn, more isolating himself. And according to the family, he began to growl. He would growl gutturally, spoke in unfamiliar voices, very deep voices where it sounded
very scary, very unnatural, something that you would expect a demon to sound like.
But even more confusing to the family and relatives and everybody else, he started speaking in Latin, which he had absolutely no exposure to Latin, according to the family, for him to learn it. Again, 11 years old, Latin's not a language you can pick up very easily. And we're not talking about pig Latin, you know, where this is actual, sure enough, Latin. But, and again, that's something that is hard to fake, in my opinion. He also displayed aversion to religious symbols, the crosses and the crucifixes in the house, the rosaries, because like I said, his mother was very heavily Catholic. And so he would shy away from those. And according to one report, he even hissed at a crucifix, or maybe it was a rosary. I can't remember. Well, the rosary's got a crucifix on it. But anyways, he hissed and backed away from it at one count. So he was definitely showing some signs. Yeah, here it says David recoiled from Bibles, the holy water, and the crucifixes and the rosary beads, and he would claim that they would burn him or they'd make him itch all over. So again, there was no physical demonstrations of that, or as far as like burn marks on his body or anything like that, like you see in the movies. He just didn't want anything to do with them. So the family started rotating night watches. Judy noted in a journal, later cited in The Devil in Connecticut, which is that another whatever it's called, documentary, that David predicted minor events like a neighbor's fall, suggesting some sort of precognition. Medical consultants suggest epilepsy and schizophrenia, but the family, mainly influenced by Judy's Catholicism, leans towards the supernatural. And Carl Jr., I mentioned him earlier, he's the one that far away from the supernatural side of it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. He claimed that these were all hallucinations from Sominex, which was a sleep aid that Julie dosed into the family's food for control. Again, Carl Jr. has distanced himself from the family. He was very angry about the allegations of supernatural stuff. He didn't want to use, or he didn't want to be a part of any of it. I don't know if he was ashamed of it or frustrated with it or what, but claiming that his mother was using sleep aids or Sominex crushed up into their food just so that she can control them. That sounds more like a pissed off and disgruntled son to me than, because it's nothing that they could actually ever prove. It's just something that he claimed was happening. And to me, that sounds more like a pissed off or a hurt son or a confused son that was trying to come up with anything he could to explain what he didn't want to believe in. Now, the family, their response to what was going on with David was a typical, well, I don't know about typical, but unsurprisingly, was prayer. And they brought in a local priest to bless the house, to bless David, to go through all the sacraments that they normally do for these situations. But all of it seemed to fail. They wasn't really getting ahead on anything. David continually got worse. And on July 15th, Judy, the mother, contacted the Bridgeport Diocese. I can't say that word. The Catholic Church leaders in Bridgeport and requested an exorcism. The church initiated a preliminary investigation, but they required more evidence. If anybody's ever familiar with the way these exorcisms work, you can't just have one according to the Catholic Church. You have to reach certain requirements, and I'm not going to get into the details of what that entails, but they do this to weed out fakes, to make sure that it is more legit, and because I don't want to say they don't want to waste their time on it, but they also don't want to get caught up in some sort of gotcha type moment. So they're very picky about doing exorcisms because they take it very seriously, as they should. And so I don't fault them for requiring more evidence before they send in a full exorcism. So the family, desperate now at this point because the Catholic Church decided that they needed more evidence, she was going to provide more evidence. Well, she reached out and she contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. This was on July 18th. She finally gets a hold of. And anybody that follows anything supernatural or ghost hunts or anything haunted, the realm of supernatural, Ed and Lorraine Warren should not be what's the word? A stranger to you. You should know who these people are. Diocese. That's it. The Catholic Diocese. Thank you, dear. The movies, The Conjuring, all that whole franchise, that's about Ed and Lorraine Warren. And if you get a chance to look at some of their not just those movies, but actually look at some of their writings and some of their experiences and some of the things that they've documented. It's some pretty cool stuff. You should give it a look. If you're into that kind of stuff at all, you should definitely check it out. And but yeah, check them out. Ed and Lorraine Warren, they are some pretty cool people. Again, the things that they do, the things that they are a part of, the research they've done, it's some amazing stuff. You should definitely look at it, and don't just stay with the Conjuring movies. Those are great movies, but if you're at all interested in that kind of stuff, man, check it. Very good, very good stuff. So, anyways, to stop singing their praises, we'll get back to this story. So, Ed and Lorraine Warren are self-taught demonologists from Monroe, Connecticut, famous for the 1976 Amityville horror case, and I think most of you will know that case. Ed is again, self-proclaimed demonologist. I don't think he ever had any. I don't know that you go get a degree for that in college. I'm not sure. It can be a pretty cool degree to have, honestly. But I think it would probably be considered a more of a cryptid type thing. But anyway, demonologist. And Lorraine was a clairvoyant medium. And they ran the New England Society for Psychic Research. And they done these for these lecture halls. They would do in-home investigations like we're about to see here. The Annabelle doll from the Conjuring movies, that's one of the items that they possess, they keep, I say possess, no pun intended, that they have, that is a cursed object, and they have a in their home in Connecticut. I think it's still in their home. They have a museum full of cursed and possessed items. It's not open to the public anymore, I know that, but they do take it on tour for whatever reasons. And I remember a few months back, supposedly the Annabelle doll come up missing, and that's one of their big rules is don't let it get out of its case, and they sure did leave it out. Rick just put up the American Institute of Metaphysics, an independent institute home study provider, offers a doctoral level degree program in demonology and a bachelor master's program in fields like occult sciences. That is pretty freaking awesome. I may have to go look into that. In all my free time, I think I may look into that. Be kind of cool anyways. I always said I would, if I could go back in time, I'd be a cryptozoologist or something like that. I like that kind of stuff. But anyways, Ed and Lorraine, they get a lot of heat, again, because a lot of people don't believe in supernatural abilities and things like that. Or not abilities, but supernatural phenomenon. And they made a living off of it, right? Because they've done all this for profit. They didn't do it out of the kindness of their hearts. They made a fortune doing this kind of research and this kind of work, and it drew a lot of attention and a lot of naysayers. And so they had some rights for people to ask questions. So now, July 18th through the 20th, the investigation begins from the Warrens. They arrive at the Glatzel home. Lorraine claimed an immediate cold spot and a vision of a black, misty form beside David. And when I say immediate, it was like upon arrival. She said that she felt the cold spot, that she felt oppression throughout the house, and that they saw a dark, misty type entity surrounding David and going around him and actually going in him and out of him, right? So she seen that immediately, or claimed to. Now, upon investigating David and working with him, interviewing him, doing their Warren thing, they finally diagnosed, I guess, for lack of a better term, David with having 43 demons. The main dominating demon was called the Beast, is what they named it, or it's what it reported to be named. Ed Warren noted that David had supernatural strength from time to time, especially when the Beast entity was in control. He was able to lift furniture that no 11-year-old boy should be able to lift. He had multiple sightings and things of this from the Warrens, that saying he was levitating during their interviews, completely foot off the ground levitating, and things of that nature. Of course, the different voices speaking and all that. Now, they had eyewitnesses for all this through the family. The Warrens kept it very tight, concealed into the home, so the only witnesses were the Warrens and the Glatzel family. But they all swear to seeing these things. Carl Jr., our doubting Thomas, if you will, thinks that it was staged and all exaggerated and just straight up faked. But the other family members, they believe what they saw. Now, the Warrens also record sessions, and they made sure to record this session as well. And in this session particular, David levitated 2 to 3 feet off the ground. He stopped breathing, even though he was still functioning, showing no signs of distress from it. He was not breathing, anything like that. And then he named all 43 of his demons in Latin. Not just gibberish Latin. He actually come up with Latin names for all 43 of the demons they said that he had. Faked, possibly, not sure how, but coming up with actual legitimate 43 Latin names for demons, that's something a kid at 11 years old, he'd have to really do some studying to come up with that all of a sudden. So I think that's as impressive as supposedly levitating, is coming up with Latin. Again, 11 years old, never had a lick of Latin in his life. At 11, I was still excited to learn new cuss words. I didn't know what Latin was. Beyond Pig Latin, anyways. So I think that's a pretty intriguing information there to pack in. Just as important to me as the levitation and the super strength is the working knowledge of Latin. Now, the Warrens took photos, mostly Polaroids is how they would do it. And in those photos, they had the orbs. Everybody's seen the orbs. They had scratches appear that shouldn't be there. And then again, it's Polaroids. Dust particles can look like orbs on those older cameras. So I don't put a lot of belief in the orbs and things like that on film, because it just can be picked up so easy. Yeah, is it not funny that demons have existed for longer than humans, and thus our languages, but they recoil and interfere with Latin. Yeah. I think because Latin is, I'll have to look into that. That is pretty interesting. Latin's a dead language and an old ancient language, so that's pretty cool. I have to look into the connection between demons and Latin. But it does always seem to go back to Latin. It's also kind of interesting why some churches, Christian churches, still give their sermons and their messages in Latin. Kind of interesting. Maybe there's some power to language that goes beyond my southern dialect, All I can do is slay women with my southern charm and my southern dialect. Maybe I can slay some demons if I learn Latin. It's kind of neat.
Giggity goo.
So, a diagnosis on what we know so far is demonic infestation tied to the house's history. It's rumored that it was on cursed land. The Warrens knew this, so they kind of put that in their possible reasons from where the possession came from. And something that's about to come up now is something the Warrens have always warned against in any kind of haunting investigational type shows. They always talk about this too, is don't taunt the demons. Okay? So they are 3 lesser exorcisms. You have informal rites by lay assistants, sanctioned by diocese, but not full Vatican approved, and they occurred over the following days. August 2nd, we have David at this point fully engaged in a possessed state. He's thrashing around, biting family members anytime they come to help hold him down. Arnie is present at this exorcism, and along with some other people, but Arnie's the one we're going to focus on right now. And Arnie is distraught with everything he's seeing, because here's little 11-year-old David, sweating, covered in all kinds of filth, fighting for his life, fighting for his soul, thrashing around, speaking Latin, spitting curses, biting family members. Just you've seen the exorcism movies, so you got an idea of what he looks like. Just think about that. That's basically what we're talking about. Arnie can't handle it anymore, and he taunts the demons to leave him alone. And at his wit's end, he screams, "Leave the boy alone, take me instead." And he repeats that 3 or 4 times, according to Debbie. And Lorraine Warren testifies that she felt a chill run through her body from her heart out through her hands, and she warned Arnie about the risk of saying that, to not do that again, to stop it. But Arnie continued to say, "Take me instead, leave the boy alone." Now, Judy, Debbie, Arnie, and the Warrens all claim to witness this happen. They say a shadow, much like the black mist that they seen earlier, fled out of David and into Arnie. And then upon that happening, David calmed down, stopped resisting, and fell asleep. almost immediately, almost like a comatose type exhaustion and pass out. And David slept peacefully through the night. Arnie also was kind of shocked but relieved about David. But the interesting thing is the next day and the following days after, David improved. He didn't have any of the symptoms he was having. He was sleeping soundly. He was at peace, if you will. He didn't know Latin or professed to not understand Latin or couldn't read it or didn't understand the words when they was repeated back to him. Ed and Lorraine interviewed him again, and they said that he seemed to be no longer possessed by any demons. He was getting better. Now, this was August 2nd into the 3rd. And August the 4th, David, last signs of any kind of supernatural influence, says that he predicted Arnie's future crime. He said that he saw Arnie holding a knife that was dripping in blood. He said that the quote is there, there's Arnie, and the quote said there's blood on the knife. The Warrens documented via the Polaroids again the scratches disappearing and reappearing. They taped David's voices as he was talking and these things, and all the evidence that they had come up with previously, they gave to the church, and 6 priests agreed that David had been possessed after all. Now the diocese finally they denied the formal endorsement of the or the acceptance that he was possessed and that it was a successful exorcism. They denied that, but still, with the proof there, they said that 6 of them said that yeah, he was definitely possessed, but he is improving, right? Now, Arnie, shortly after this happened on August 4th, following afterwards, Arnie started exhibiting symptoms. He would have blackouts where family members said he was acting strangely but going about his day, and Arnie wouldn't remember anything that had happened that day. Nothing at all. They said that he would growl and hiss and sneer at them, and then just kind of like the next second he would be normal, like he didn't know what was going on, like nothing was happening. He was showing unnatural strength. One time in a fit of rage, no, not in a fit of rage, and one time he was trying to open a door or a stuck drawer in the kitchen, and like when he finally got angry at it and pulled it out, he like ripped the whole drawer out, the whole drawer front, tore the counter, pulled the whole counter away from the wall, done a lot of damage to the kitchen by just pulling a stuck drawer off. And an unverified account said, and I don't put much claim into this one because there's only one witness, said that he fell almost 100 feet without any kind of injury. I don't buy into that one. I think that's a little too, just adding to the story a little bit. So I don't really count that one. But I'm going to mention it because it is mentioned in the reports. So the Warrens, like I said, they have what they wanted with David, and they leave the family's home, and they try to get some book film rights and and to tell the story and all that. And I don't know if they ever got it or not, but that's what they charged the family, because initially the way the Warrens were doing their business, if they didn't have money to pay up front for the services, that the family was supposed to sign over all the rights to the story so that the Warrens could write their books, produce films, all that kind of stuff later if they wanted to. And it says here that they did later secure the book and film rights to the David story here. So that's, like I said, they were doing this for profit. Say what you will, if you want to think they're good people or not, they was making a living doing this. So does that make them trustworthy? Does that make them profiting off other people's fears? I mean, we'll see. If they're profiting off of other people's fears, you think they'd be, a politician instead of a ghost hunter. But either way, fear sells. It makes you money if you know how to work it. So we move into December or September through December now. Arnie, his moods begin to intensify. The changes are becoming more evident. He's having very intense mood swings. He gets stuck in these trance-like states where he's just staring at nothing for hours on end, not blinking, just kind of stuck. They said that they would find him just sitting up or standing in the corner or whatever at night, just kind of frozen in this trance. Debbie said that his eyes would go blank, like there'd be no recognition of anything to anyone or any kind of reaction to stimulus or nothing. He would just be like somebody like he was an avatar type, for a spirit, the little robot walking around. You just turn the switch off and he just freezes until something comes back and takes control again. So the family, they begin to distance themselves from Arnie because they know something's up. They're very, very uncomfortable around him. Carl Jr. called it hysteria and wanted to get him medical intervention. He wanted to get him to a psychiatrist or some sort of doctor to get him help. Carl Jr. did. But no medical intervention was ever given. And Arnie, he continued to work just like everything was normal, but obviously something wasn't, right? Now, February 16th, 1981. We're going to move back to Alan Bono. We're bringing him back in. If you'll remember, Bono is the 40-year-old kennel owner that is renting the property to Debbie and Arnie and all them, right? Alan Bono's 40, divorced. Again, like I said, very, very friendly, overly friendly, and a known alcoholic. And he's actually had prior DUIs up to this point. So not just an alcoholic, but a very active alcoholic. Now, he rented the adjacent apartment to Arnie and Debbie for $200 a month back in 80, 81. And the apartment, it's kind of like the townhouse set up with a wall that connects them, that kind of setup. And rumors were going around that Debbie and Alan Bono were having an affair. Again, Debbie's 19, 20 years old at this point. Alan's around 40, divorced, very charismatic, very friendly. Debbie's at home because Arnie's a hardworking guy. He's out and about a lot. So, plus there's a lot of family turmoil, arguing, and because a lot of stress involved because Arnie's acting like he's distancing himself. Arnie's acting really strange, so they're starting to back off of each other a little bit. So the rumors of an affair pop up. None of this is verified, just rumors. Again, Arnie worked as a tree surgeon. So imagine like those companies that come out, trim the trees away from the power lines, that kind of stuff. So he was definitely outdoors, working long hours. He worked as needed, so on call a lot. So he was in and out a lot. The day of the event, we'll call it, the morning routine was normal. Arnie went to work. That afternoon, sometime between 1 and 3 p.m., there was a group outing at Mug and Munch Cafe. Attending this was Arnie, Debbie, Bono, Arnie's sisters. I mentioned them earlier. You had Wanda, at this point is 18, Mary, 13. You got Debbie's cousin, Mary, so 2 Marys, also a teenager. And they were all sitting, having a little impromptu get together, a late lunch, if you will. Bono, according to the barmaid named Susan Burrows, her own testimony said that Bono drank anywhere between 13 and 15 glasses of wine in those couple of hours. So he was, like I said, he was known to tie one on, and he was definitely true to form this day. Arnie also had been drinking as well, but it turns out that doesn't seem to be near as bad as what Bono was doing. So they get back home around 3 o'clock, and they go to the kennel, which was adjacent to the rental properties. And Bono, very intoxicated, grabs young Mary, the 13-year-old, inappropriately. Wanda, the sister, witnesses this. Now, when we say inappropriately, there's no description exactly what he did, but the word groped is used, so we can assume the worst. And it was bad enough that all hell breaks loose, right? So Arnie, seeing this, he intervenes. He jumps in, and the argument takes place. And I'll give you what I think about it in a minute, but this is what happens. Again, we have Debbie, Wanda, the 2 Marys, Arnie, and Alan. Is Alan Bono, or whatever his name is? Bono, right? So all this is witnessed. They start their fight over him groping her. And we already know there's tensions about the infidelity rumors. So I think they begin arguing over that, the groping. The cost of rent gets brought up. They get to arguing about Debbie and the alleged affair and the inappropriate friendship that Bono and Debbie have. Because Debbie was at home. Bono worked at the kennel, which was basically at home as well. So that kind of fed those rumors, you know. So Bono grabbed hold of Arnie during the scuffle. And at that point, Arnie pulled out a Buck 110 pocket knife, which is, Buck is the name brand knife. And it's a folding blade with 5-inch blades. So it's a folding knife, and when you open it up, it's got a 5-inch blade. So it's a large pocket knife, folding pocket knife. And Buck, by the way, is a fabulous brand of knives. I have several back there with me. The Buck is also the knife that in Scream, that Ghostface, he uses a Buck. So wonderful blades. And so he pulls the Buck out, and he stabbed Bono 20 times. The autopsy says that of those 20 stabs, 5 of them any one of those 5 would have been fatal. In his chest, he had 5 stabs that nicked the heart, and any of those would have been the kill shot. But like I said, there was total of 21s in the abdomen, in the abdomen, in the stomach, and the side, and the shoulders, and the chest. He just went to work on him, you know. High velocity blood splatter on the walls and the ceilings, on the surrounding people. There was no defense wounds at all on Bono, so he didn't have a chance to defend himself. So we would call that a blitz attack. Just immediately, boom, 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 boom. Don't even have time to get your hands up, you know. And they said, Debbie's testimony says that Arnie was growling like a wild animal when he was doing all this. That there was no more cussing, there was no more fighting. He went pure animalistic, right? And after the attack happened, he turned and he fled, ran away, and over 2 miles he ran to a place called Hackney's Barn. We'll get to that in a minute. So once he fled, Debbie, at 5:15, the 911 receives a phone call from Debbie, hysterical, obviously, and Debbie is saying, quote, "He didn't mean to do it. He didn't mean to do it." EMTs found Bono at this point bleeding out, and he was pronounced dead at the Danbury Hospital. By the time they got him there, he had passed. Again, 5 different times those stabs, those blade hit his heart and nicked his heart, and I mean he was gone. Just took a matter of time for him to bleed out. At 5:45 p.m., Police Sergeant John Lucas found Arnie bloodied, dazed, and kind of in a trance again. Arnie claimed to have no recollection. Arnie claimed that he had no idea how he got there. He could not remember anything that had happened. Complete, amnesia, I guess. He couldn't remember anything. And he did say when they was explaining to him why he was being arrested and bringing him in, the only thing he said was, "The devil made me do it." Recollection. That's it. So the devil made me do it. So there it is. There's the phrase. Now, he was arrested at the spot and charged with first-degree murder, and was given $125,000 bail, and was held at the Bridgeport, Connecticut Correctional Center. Now, the knife that they found on Arnie matched the wounds that was on Bono's body. So there's no doubt that was the murder weapon, and he had it on him. At the time of arrest, Arnie's blood alcohol content level was 0.12. 0.08 is considered intoxicated. He was at 0.12, which quite honestly isn't that high. Yeah, it's legally impaired, but it's not blackout drunk at all. And he was claiming a form of blackout because he couldn't remember anything. But the blood alcohol content in his body wasn't sufficient enough to cause what we would call a blackout. There was no drugs found in the system at all, so you can't blame the amnesia on drug use or anything like that. The wounds they, on the body during the autopsy, they said they were very, 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 what's the word? They were very deliberate in the strikes and in the point of the attack. It's not like he was in a blind rage, just slicing. He was putting the knife exactly where he wanted it to go, right? So that kind of takes away a uncontrolled frenzy attack. He had some sort of control, whether he was aware of it or not, or conscious to it. It was a deliberate, deadly attack, and with purpose. The eyewitnesses, Wanda and Mary, who saw the stabbing, along with Debbie and them too, but they signed statements implicating Arnie, saying that, he definitely had done it and all this kind of stuff. But interestingly enough, later on during the trial, Wanda and Mary both, they recanted their statements, saying that the police had coerced them into signing that before they were ready. So that didn't actually make the trial into the trial information. So there's a book that covers all this too. Well, there's many books that you can look into it, and writings where it details exactly what their statements had said. It's easy to look it up. You can find it if you want exact reasoning and exact wordage. Because I know I had set that out here, but now I can't find it, and I'm not going to keep looking for it. Anyways, they said that he done it, that he was in control, but later they recanted their stories, saying that the police had coerced them into saying it that way. So this was Brookfield, Connecticut's first murder in 193 years. So needless to say, it shocked the town. Into silence. They were just shocked, absolutely, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to deal with it. And the initial motive to it was jealousy and alcohol-fueled rage because of the relationship between Bono and Debbie, the perceived relationship between Bono and Debbie, and then Arnie's jealousy. And they thought the town took it as two drunk guys got mad and it turned deadly, and that to them was bad enough. And that's what the town chose to believe because it was easy. It fit inside that box real easy, and they didn't have to think about anything extra, right? So it goes to trial, and this is where we get into it being historic because it is the first ever trial to use demonic possession as a defense. And the attorney, Martin Minella, who was Arnie's attorney, he had actually traveled to England for other cases, specifically that he could be used on this one, that had two cases of possession that were blamed on demonic, or two cases that were blamed on demonic possession, but neither one of those actually made it to trial. It all got pleaded out before it hit court. So technically, this is the first one that made it to court, but there was some precedent set with demonic possession being blamed, but they never went to trial. And this lawyer, Martin Minella, actually worked on those two previous cases over there. So he consulted with exorcists and subpoenaed the priests to be part of this trial, but the priest declined the subpoena. And they said it was for religious reasons, so they got out of it. So March 19th, 1981, the grand jury in Danbury Superior Court indicted Arnie for murder. The Warners attended, and they actually leaked the story to the media. And Lorraine Warner warned the police that pre-murder of the danger unheeded, right? That she was like, she was warning people that Arnie being possessed, it was dangerous to be near him in the courtroom and things like this. They were very much, I don't want to say whipping it into a frenzy, but they were definitely using this to really shine a spotlight on the possession side of it. And again, that's their business. That's how they made a living. So it kind of makes you wonder what their really their motivation was. You know, kind of shines a little bit of a light on them and makes you wonder. Now, the defense strategy was simple: not guilty by demonic possession. Again, this was inspired by that case I mentioned earlier in the UK, which never went to court over there, but that's what gave them the idea. Their evidence, was the tapes and the photos that the Warners had got on David's possession. Arnie's taunt as the transfer. He asked the demons to come into him, and that tends to show that the demons had taken Arnie over, which would work to explain, would work in favor of their defense, right? The process, now they called all this a mountain of proof with all these the tapes and the photos and the all the things that the Warrens had done. All the things that the Warners had recorded, all the things that the Warners had shared, all that kind of stuff. They called that a mountain of evidence. They thought this was all that they needed to slam dunk this case. They were sold on it, and they just had to get everybody else involved to believe it, right? Now, the prosecution, Walter D. Brennan Jr., their whole case was intentional homicide, and that there was no supernatural viability to their claims. That it doesn't work at all. Basically, this is a bunch of BS, and it's just a lousy excuse, and we're going to prove it that it was intentional, and he's just making this demonic stuff up. Now, again, the Warners had definitely hyped this up because, again, they was set to, if this going into court, the more information it got, the more eyes it got on it, the better for them, because they had the book rights, they had the deals to make a movie out of this, and so they were out really pitching their books and their films through this case because they wanted as many eyes on it as they could, because they saw that this could be big for them, and therefore this case gets global recognition, and calls were coming in from all around the world. The hotels in that whole area for miles and miles and miles were booked solid, and they actually was a Gallup poll done in 1980 or whatever year, just 81. There was a Gallup poll done showing this, and they mentioned this case specifically, but 63% of Americans believed in the the devil and demons, and that possession was real, and that it could play a part in this case. So 63% of the people that took that poll was on the side. It was in favor of it being demonic possession. The psych evaluation in Arnie had deemed him competent. The symptoms, such as the blackouts and stuff like that, was attributed to stress and alcohol, not possession at all. It was all about the physical and logical explanations of what was going on. And they had a point. I mean, alcohol makes you black out, and it can make you forget what's going on. I mean, that's a real thing. So they were pointing that as attributing factors as to why he couldn't remember his amnesia and his blackouts. Now, the venue where this was going on was the Danbury Superior Court. Judge Robert Callahan was presiding, and it was a 3-week trial, and it took all 3 weeks. And the courtroom was packed with over 100 spectators every day. They had their standard 12 jurors with 4 alternates, and to pick out those jurors, they were probed for or questioned about their supernatural beliefs. I think there's some gray area there. Like, if you've got supernatural beliefs or supernatural phenomenon as part of your defense, and you're asking the jurors, do you believe in supernatural powers or whatever? And if that's a yay or nay, I mean, that kind of loads the jury a little bit. You know what I mean? As in that specific case, because that's what the defense was. I don't really like the way they handled that personally. Again, that's just my opinion. Seems like it's stacking the jury a little bit, in my opinion, on that. So the witnesses that the prosecution used, now we've gotten into October 29th through November 10th. This part of the case is going now. Susan Burroughs, which was the barmaid, she claimed that Bono had drank 13 to 15 glasses of wine within a 90-minute span for their lunch, and that Bono was also slurring and was beginning to get belligerent. The EMT, he said that when he arrived on the scene at 5:20 p.m. after the stabbing, that Debbie was sobbing and saying that Arnie didn't mean to do it. He didn't mean to do it. And Bono was gasping, barely recognizable as far as what he was saying that he stabbed me. Wanda Johnson, 18 at the time, saw the stabbing. And she also says that Arnie had punched Debbie before he started attacking Bono, which I found interesting because it shows the state of mind he was in before the stabbing, how angry he was, and how much he was blaming the idea of a sexual relationship between him and her, between between Debbie and Bono. Mary Johnson, 13 years old. This is the one that Bono had groped. And she testifies that Bono had inappropriately touched her, that he had groped her, and that Arnie became enraged and began the assault, if you will, to defend her, to defend the 13-year-old. Now, Detective John Lucas is the one who made the arrest on Arnie. He found him bloody and dazed and had the knife recovered from Bono. From Arnie, he actually still had it on his person. So the murder weapon was on him, right? The autopsy said there's 20 plus wounds. They had an intentional manner The blood splatter on the sides, on the walls, on the ceilings, showed that it was an overhead stabbing. That he stabbed like this, and he also stabbed like this into the chest. So not only was it, I'm imagining, grabbed dude and started stabbing, but he also at some point turns the knife around and stabs down as well. So it was a vicious attack. Now Bono showed no signs at all of any kind of defense, none at all. And that Arnie on his body showed no signs of damage either. So you can't say there was a self-defense. Arnie couldn't use self-defense in this. And there's no showing that he tried, but I'm just saying that it was completely one-sided, this attack was. And again, they wrote it off. The prosecutors are saying that this is premeditated, and it came out of jealousy and alcohol-fueled rage, and that is not an excuse for murder. That's just what they were saying it was. That there was no demonic possession. It was all jealousy and rage and alcohol. They tried to get the demonic possession stuff thrown out, and they told the jury several times that to dismiss the defense's claims for possession. They said it was irrelevant and unscientific, and that the jury should dismiss those things. But as we all know, once you hear it, you can't just forget it. That kind of defense was said, it was presented, and it had to influence the court and the jury. Just because they say scratch that, pretend like you didn't hear it, you heard it. That's a bunch of most BS crap coming from judges. Strike that from the record. Y'all didn't hear that. Pretend you didn't hear that. Ignore that. Come on, man. It's there. You heard it. It's going to influence you. Don't even waste your breath on that crap. So the witnesses had Debbie Glatzel said that Arnie was in a trance at the time, and she was accustomed to what the trances looked like. Said that he was in one of those trances, that he was growling and hissing and snapping. I'm assuming the snapping's like with his teeth, gnashing of the teeth or whatever, during the attack, and that she had also testified that during the exorcism of David's exorcism, that she tried to bring in the demonic transfer from David into Arnie as part of the defense as well. And that's one of the things that the court said to dismiss and not to use. But she did say it, she got it out there, and it was on record, even though it was struck from the record, and you're not supposed to remember that. BS. Judy Glatzel gave David's possession details, not Arnie's. And they allowed that as part of the backstory of what was going on because it was about David and not Arnie. So, interestingly enough, David's story of his possession was allowed. And the symptoms that David was having were mirrored by Arnie. So that's kind of a way that the defense was able to get Arnie's possession into the court case was by making it David's story and then relating David's plot to Arnie's plot. So that was kind of a cool way of getting it in there. Now, they also had Lorraine Warren as a witness, though it was limited to only what was going on with David. All right. Lorraine brought up the 43 demons, and she brought up Arnie's taunt, which caused the transfer. She brought that up. But again, under the guise of it's David's story. And then Ed also testified as a demonologist that once Arnie had taunted for the transfer and told the demon to take me, that possession was intimate. The possession was unstoppable at that point. It was inevitable. It was going to happen at that point. Now the priests who declined the subpoenas, they were called, but of course they weren't there, so all that was, it didn't happen, but for some reason they were still signed on as a witness. And then Manella, the defense attorney, also had European experts scheduled to be there too, but they had problems with their flight and ultimately canceled on them and never showed up to the trial. Other evidence was the Warrens tapes and the photos and all that kind of stuff. So the closing arguments, the prosecution was basically says that a man, not the devil, wielded the knife, and the defense was that it was the devil made me do it, that Arnie was no killer, and that he was a victim of possession as well, and that it was a terrible tragedy. The deliberation took 15 hours on November 24th, and they come back after a 15-hour deliberation. The jury comes back with guilty of first-degree manslaughter, not murder, because they said it was not premeditated. So he got first-degree manslaughter. The sentencing took place December 18th, 1981. And they gave him, which I would love to know the reasoning for these numbers. Keep in mind, this was 20 stab wounds, brutal attack in front of witnesses. Yes, there was alcohol involved. I get that, which would play a part. But they gave Arnie 10 to 20 years at Somers State Prison. The judge says that it's a tragic but accountable, and that Arnie needed to serve his time. But I would think 10 to 20 years is a little bit low to me, especially how bad it was, how brutal that stabbing was. I mean, 20 times, 5 of them to the heart. Very well planned, very well not planned, but it was very well executed as far as the brutality of it. It was from stab number 1, it was murder, or it was a killing, anyways. Maybe the possession played a part in it. It swayed the jury or swayed the judge as far as setting up the sentencing. But like I said, 10 to 20 years just doesn't seem much for that kind of brutality. And what gets even stranger or more, I don't know if strange is the right word or not, but it's interesting to say the least that Arnie, once he got into prison, he earned his GED. He got college credits along the way. But most importantly, he said that he joined a Christian support group, like the church there inside the prison, and that he had got baptized, and that the demons were exorcised from him, and they fled his body, that he was cured from the possession, if you will. And he was, after that moment, the model inmate. The Somers State Prison said that he was one of the leaders. He was one that they could trust. He had again model prisoner. He was able to get away with other things. You know, he got some perks, if you will. He wound up marrying Debbie in 1984, and the prison actually put on a full wedding for the guy, not just in front of the warden or whatever, but they had a ceremony. Him and Debbie, Arnie and Debbie, had a ceremony in the prison when they got married. That's kind of an idea of what kind of model prisoner he was, and what the warden and the guards thought of him, right? And then in December 1986, after serving only 5 years from that brutal knife murder or killing or manslaughter, as the court calls it, he's paroled for good behavior. The Warrens, again, are back into this because they interview him as part of the parole deal. And again, remember, this is mid '80s, right? The Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, are world renowned. They're the heyday of their popularity, if you will. They are. This is right in the middle of the satanic panic thing going on. The Warrens are rock stars. All right. So people listened, and they bought into what they were saying, and they interviewed him as part of the parole board hearings, and they say that Arnie is, quote, no longer possessed, and he learned how to ward off any future possession. And like I said, Arnie says it's because of him getting baptized and whatnot in prison. But model citizen or model inmate, earned his GED, got college credits. When he gets out, he continues into college. Newly married, paroled after 5 years, back out on the streets. He's got the Warren saying that everything's cool, that he beat the devil and the devil can't get a hold of him again. That he's got it. Now, Arnie works. He takes a job doing landscaping work because, like I said, he used to do the tree surgery, the tree trimming, things like that. So he's back out doing the tree trimming and working like that. And as of 2023, Arnie in 23 was 63 years old, so I guess it'd be 65 now. Still living in Connecticut. He turned to faith while in prison and therefore no longer possessed. Still contributes his life to faith. And he's keeping a very low profile life right now. Very low profile life. He doesn't want the spotlight. He just wants to kind of go on from this, right? Now, in 1983, there was a book deal called The Devil in Connecticut. I mentioned that earlier. I think I said it was a documentary, but I misspoke. It was a book by Gerald Brittle, and it had the Glatzels got $4,500 for their part of the story, and this is while he was still in prison. This was 1983. Now, the Warners, they got over $80,000 for their part of the story. Again, because that's part of their deals. They get the rights to these books and these movies, all the film stuff. So, again, setting pretty, right? In 2006, Carl Jr. and David, the original boy who was possessed, sues for libel and privacy infringements because of these books. They went after an unspecified amount of money for damages, and they did settle out of court with the book, whatever they call it, the manufacturers of books, the ones who made the book. And I'll get here in a chat in a minute. Tells me what it is. But anyways, Carl said the book is phony, and that the Warrens are hoax makers for fame. And again, Carl Jr. is out there saying that that's what they are. The Warners or Warren. What? They said that they are just after the fame, after the money on these things. So they're not actually there to help anybody else. Sorry, Bump Stop Barbie is yelling from the bedroom about something. I think about who made the books. Publishers. That's what she said. Publishers. The bookmakers. It works. Same thing. But again, there's several things coming from this story that stems off of this The Devil Made Me Do It case and the Warrens themselves. You have in 2006 a Haunting, which is a TV show that you can find on like Discovery, things like that. It's called A Haunting. It's usually like a haunting in Connecticut, a haunting in wherever. This one is Where Demons Dwell as the episode, and Arnie and Debbie themselves were consulted, and they helped produce that episode. 2021, the Conjuring books come out, or the movies come out, and in 2021, the Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's like I said, it's put that off. Or set that into motion. In 2023, to Netflix, The Devil on Trial. It actually has interviews with Arnie, David, Alan, and Carl. Director Chris Holt is behind that, and y'all need to watch that one. It's really good. I got some information from it as well. Again, we got Debbie, who was Arnie's wife. She passed away in 2021. She backed the possession story fully, 100%, never varied from it, never changed her mind from it, all the way up until her death in 2021. David, who would be 55 now, he says, remember, he was the one who was originally possessed at 11. He said that something very real happened to him. But it's kind of dampened because he feels like he was exploited by the Warrens, and so he's not sure exactly what happened. He's still hesitant to say it was a full-on possession, but he does believe in demons. He says that he's a man of faith and he believes in angels, he believes in demons. But he's still hesitant to say that he was possessed. I'm not sure that there's a little bit of taboo to it in his mind, and he just don't want to say it out loud. I'm not sure what's going on in his head, but he does say that something very real happened to him, and that he believes something happened with Arnie as well. He just won't come out and say the words possessed. Carl Jr., 62 now, he says hoax from the beginning. Warrens themselves have profited $1.2 billion in their career from the Conjuring franchises, from their museums, from their book deals, their interviews, their stage presence, giving their talks, their interviews, they've made a living, a very lucrative living, from demon possessions and supernatural events. And Carl Jr. has screamed hoax from the beginning, and even after the Warrens have passed, he's still screaming hoax. And he has actually written exposés type books, and helped with some documentaries, things trying to debunk the Warrens and the whole concept of demon possession and supernatural phenomenon altogether. He is a hoax believer, as far as that there is that all things like that are made up. That there's a scientific reasoning behind everything, and that supernatural, anything and everything supernatural is fake. Alan, he's kind of short and sweet about it. He says that the Warrens helped and that possession is genuine, but he doesn't go into a lot of detail. He's kind of pulled himself back away from the things. Don't want any spotlight on it. Judy, now deceased as well, again, she believed fully in the possession thing for David and on Arnie. But as you can see, the family's kind of split. Well, not really split, but the family is not unanimous in the devil made me do it defense. They are kind of split about, yeah, something did happen, but I don't know what, to no, it's all BS, and we were manipulated and used by the Warrens to as a money grab type thing. And then we got some that's bought in 100%, like, oh yeah, it was absolutely demonic, and you ain't gonna ever change my mind. But what we do know is this case, it exposes tensions or differences between faith and in science, right? We can see where just with their family right there, you have a group that are faith-based, that it was all real. You got a group that is in no way is it anything to do supernatural. There's no faith involved, that it's purely scientifically explainable, and we're crazy for thinking that it could be anything else. Then you got a few that's in the middle, kind of riding the fence. I would love to see their scientific explanation as to what was happening with David and then later with Arnie, especially with the levitation that was supposedly witnessed and the superhuman strength that was displayed, the speaking of Latin. And again, all these things were signed affidavits and testimony. People were saying they saw with their own eyes. So if there's a scientific explanation to it, then all these people are liars, right? Because I don't see a scientific explanation that, okay, sure, you can learn Latin and manipulate how your voice sounds, fine. But how are you going to fake levitating 2 to 3 feet off the ground? There's no scientific explanation for that. How are you going to explain an 11-year-old boy moving 200-pound furniture like it's nothing and pushing people across the room when they try to hold him down? I mean, I don't think there's a scientific explanation for that, unless it's some sort of adrenaline surge all of a sudden, but perhaps. I'd just like to see what their scientific reasoning is to explain that part away. Now, as far as the legality of it, this case has inspired debates on insanity defenses, mainly because you either know that demon possession is real, and the people who disagree with you will say, well, you're insane. That there is no demon possession, you're just an insane person. So you have the insanity versus demon possession for that defense as well. And there's no legal precedence as far as possession goes. Possession is considered a myth when it comes to the culture norms. But back in the 80s, like I said, 63% of Americans believed in the demonic realm and then demonic possession. And again, at the height of the satanic panic. Now it's kind of the other way. I don't think that people believe in the supernatural or the demonic side of it as much as they did back then. Kind of swing around. Most skeptics and most scientific explanation boils down to epilepsy, schizophrenia, other mental psychological issues that they would explain away the what a possession looks like, especially during the exorcism parts of it, the way the body reacts, the contortions, the things that they say, the things that they claim that they see, the things they claim that they hear. Now, this is the possessed person, what they claim they see and hear. They will write that off as schizophrenia or some other kind of psychosis in their head that's messing with them. Such as like with the witch trials, it was believed that a mold on the bread was the likely culprit for a lot of those things. With possession, they kind of feel like it's more a psychological break, and epilepsy is another big one that they go to. The believer side of it, the faith-based side of it, looks more like the only way that it's a divine intervention of the human body. You can have divine intervention, which is a angelic type rescue or something to better you, to stop something from happening or to allow something to happen that would help you out. And then you also have intervention from the other side, which would cause harm to you and to others and ultimately to your soul. It's hard to say because it's hard to be in the middle, in my opinion. It's hard to be riding the fence on this. Either you're base yourself on faith and you base yourself on belief, whether your belief be biblical or Christian or whatever, or your belief be in science. I happen to believe that it takes faith to believe either side. You have to have faith in science, which is, I think, what most people kind of fall back onto, or you have faith in the spiritual realm, whether it be like me, Christianity, or whatever else, witchcraft, whatever else you're into, paganism or whatever. But belief, it isn't something that, well, I should say faith, isn't something that science can, it's not like science in the way that faith is visceral, okay? Science is like a very logical, by the book, A and B equals C, and then if you do this, D happens, okay? A lot of times in science, your faith is, well, what does C actually do? You know what I mean? It's like science can prove things up to a point, and then you have to have faith in that outcome coming from it. Our faith is based in the spiritual realm of it, that science is from a creator and from a single point that's out there. And that single point being God, in my case, who created everything, has created his angelic beings. And I believe that. But if you believe in God, you believe in angels, then on the flip side of that same coin, you got to believe in demons. And demons have power here. So demonic possession, in my mind, is something that is absolutely real. But in every era, from the witch hunts to modern trials, people have seen evil as an external force. And blaming the devil or demons kind of displaces guilt, okay? It makes the unthinkable bearable. In some previous episodes, we talked about werewolves and how the human mind is easier to accept a werewolf done these evil things versus a human being, because our mind isn't, we're not programmed to think that, well, a human can do these bad things because I'm a human too, and I'm not capable of this evil. So why should another human be capable of that evil? It's a very uncomfortable thought. So you have a scapegoat, if you will. Last week was werewolves. This week is demonic possession. It makes the things that are unimaginable, imaginable at that point. It adds something that you can wrap your mind around and make it more acceptable. I don't know, maybe the devil uses possession, which I believe, but perhaps that possession isn't the greatest trick. It isn't his greatest weapon in this scenario. Maybe the devil's greatest weapon with possession is convincing us that possession isn't real and that we are the ones who are always responsible for our own actions, and that when someone points out that the devil made me do it, we are now pre-programmed to believe that that's a cop-out, that it's a no way is that believable, because again, it's something that that the human mind can believe, is that we aren't capable of these bad things. We need something to blame the evil on. And in this case, in tonight's show, we blame it on demons and the devil. Is it just an excuse? They're using it as an excuse. Is it a legitimate excuse? Yeah, I think it can be a legitimate excuse. But we'll see. It will be other times when it happens again, I'm sure. So, but another thing that you need to keep in mind, though, is that the devil can't just take you. It looks for ways to get in, and you can allow it in, but he has no power over you. If your faith is in Christ, then you have that hedge of protection there, and he can't just overpower that. You have to let him in. So don't let him in. Be a good start. Well, I'm about out of time. I had 3 other stories to go through tonight, but I was able to stretch 2 hours out of this one. We may touch on the other 2 at a later date with another Front Porch Forensics episode. Tonight was pretty interesting. I could have kept talking for a while about it and debate people about it if we want to. Be fun. But coming up next is Juxtaposition. It will be a roundtable conversation about cryptids, and that should be an awesome show. I must admit that I'm sucker for cryptids, so I will probably be listening in on that one. But I am. Go ahead,
Daniel. Check your DMs, brother. You have an invite.
Oh, sweet. All right, cool. I'll definitely check that as soon as I get off here. But I am Bumpstock Ken. You can find me on X at Bumpstock Ken or at FP_forensics on X. Check out KLRNradio.com. You will find a show on there that you like. If this ain't your speed, you'll find something you want there. So check out klrn.com, klrnradio.com. And you guys, be smart out there. Go on. Have a great week. Hopefully, I will see you next week. And don't do something that will get you the subject of our next Front Porch Forensics episode. Thank y'all. Y'all have a great evening.
I like the girl talk vibes. They make me feel just fine. I listen to a lot of true crime.